Fermented buckwheat pancakes. So easy. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how to make buckwheat pancakes, but I'm using the fermentation method. Also down below this video is the free printable PDF. You don't need to go to the blog, you don't need to sign in, you don't need to sign up. You can follow along. I will not be giving the measurements as I go because I use grams, you may use ounces. Even if you don't use the fermentation process, it is still the same except for letting it ferment. For this recipe, you could grind the buckwheat grits like I have here, or I prefer to use the whole buckwheat groats that I have here. Now you will have to clean them because there is a lot of vetch and matter in them. It doesn't take too long. I just sprinkle them on a screen, and as you see, there's a little bit of vetch right there. So if you're going to sift like I am, allow a few extra grams for the brand. 116, that's good enough for me. When I bought these from Azure Standard, I went ahead and I sort of sifted them, got a lot of it out, but I didn't do a thorough job. So each time I use the grains, I go ahead and sift more thoroughly each time. This is my heirloom soft white wheat berries. This definitely needs to be cleaned thoroughly. And since I am sifting, I need 135 grams. I'm going to use about 150 because of the brand. We have to deduct that and we should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and sift all the matter out and then we'll be ready to grind. And this is what became of the matter that was in the buckwheat hulls and the wheat berries. I like mixing the buckwheat hulls and the wheat berries together and grind them as one. For this wheat grinder, because of the stones, you always have to turn the motor on, put your berries in. I put the lid on, it cuts down on the noise a little bit, and then I let it grind. I use the 0 setting, so it's very fine. It is like a all-purpose or bread flour or cake flour. And here I'm using a fine sifter. I'm sifting the bran out. I save it for chickens. I use it in my pizzas. I use it in cornmeal bread. It doesn't go to waste. This is just one time that I like to sift. And I weigh out my flour after I sift it. I had some extra. Today I'm going to add it to my sourdough starter. I don't do discards. I just add more flour and water. And I just eyeball it. I added equal amount of flour and water. And I have some little extra. I'm going to put it in my UV jar and put that in the freezer. Comes in handy if I'm grinding wheat and I'm just a few grams short. Now I'm going to be doing the fermentation. You're going to add all your ground white wheat and your buckwheat groats and add 2 cups of buttermilk. You want to stir this well. We really want to hydrate that flour, especially ground flour. It needs to soak up the buttermilk. Let it sit on your counter anywhere between 12 and 24 hours. I highly recommend using a dark bowl. You don't want a clear bowl that the light can get in anytime you're, quote, fermenting. Always try to use a dark vessel with a cover. And now I'm just adding a silicone bowl cover, and then I'm going to cover it with a clean flour sack towel. Push it into the corner, forget about it until tomorrow. This way it keeps the gnats out and it keeps it nice and dark. Good morning, it is 24 hours later. Start heating up your griddle. You want it on very low, low and slow. And then while you're mixing your batter up, this will be heating up very slow. I always pre-crack my eggs into a separate bowl, just ensures there's nothing wrong with them. I like to give it a little whisk before I start adding it to any ingredients. Weigh out your molasses. I store mine in a UV jar in the pantry. Add your egg to your molasses and stir that very well. Now add your slightly cooled butter to your egg and molasses. If it's too hot, it will curdle your eggs. Now add that mixture to a large vessel. It is now 6 a.m. the next morning, and this is what it looks like. It looks like a giant sourdough starter. Beautiful, and it smells so good. Add all the contents and stir very well before adding the next ingredients. Now add your baking powder, baking soda, and sea salt and stir well. I like having my blueberries thawed in a strainer and sitting on a plate. Since I don't have enough blueberries, I will be using chocolate chips for the remainder of the batter. I always cover my batter with a tea towel while in between making the pancakes. This way it keeps it foamy and fresh, otherwise it deflates, in my opinion. I prefer using a cookie scoop, but you could pour it right out of the batter bowl, whatever you prefer. Test your griddle, put some water on. If it sizzles and dances, it's ready. I like to rotate the griddle one time before starting. And I am going to increase the flame heat just a little bit. Grease the griddle. You can either use organic coconut oil solid, or my favorite, ghee, clarified butter, or homemade butter. Look up there. Check out the videos on my Food from Scratch playlist for more information on making butter. I like having a tray. It's easier for cleanup. I have pumpkin spice and cinnamon. I will probably use the pumpkin spice. Drop by scoops, and I do not add the blueberries or chips until I'm ready to flip them over. I'm going to cover it. Keep a saucer underneath the strainer, otherwise the liquid will come out from the blueberries and get on your griddle and splatter. Add your blueberries, and if you're going to add cinnamon or pumpkin spice, add it now and then get ready to flip them over. And about halfway through, I like to rotate the pan just once so it's even heating. After a minute or two, remove them from the griddle and place them on the cooling rack to cool. Be generous with the butter and start all over again. I like to flip the pancakes just as the bubbles start popping. That is the air bubbles on the pancakes. I ran out of blueberries, so now I'm going to be adding my chocolate chips right before I flip them. And as they cool, I stack them in piles of 3. That's how I will wrap them individually, piles of 3, and then I'll put them in the freezer. The rest are going to be chocolate chip. I put them on the cooling rack facing up for the chocolate chips because I don't want the chocolate chips getting on the cooling rack and smearing. Place the whole cooling rack with the chocolate chip pancakes into the freezer for 10 to 15 minutes. Then I take them out, I stack them in 3s, and then I wrap them just like the other ones. And these last 2 buckwheat chocolate chip pancakes are for me. I'm going to be eating them on my large cast iron dinner plate. I always remove the griddle, then I turn the flame off. Finally, it's my time to grab some butter that I made just the other day. I whipped it, and I'm going to slather some on. And I made raspberry jam last month and some maple syrup, organic, and organic orange juice from Costco. And this is how I freeze my chocolate chip buckwheat pancakes. Chips up. I'm going to put them in the freezer about 10 to 15 minutes. Then I can take them out and stack them like that and then freeze them all together in the same bag. Thank you for visiting today. Hit the show more below to print in any affiliate links you may want. That's how you do it on an iPhone. Make sure you give a like, share on social media, and if you like this content, please consider subscribing, hit that bell, all notification, and this is Jersey saying see you on the next video.